Hey, this is Erik with Sunland Guitars here in Daytona Beach, Florida. And in this video, I wanted to go over the basics of a setup, or at least to help you understand some questions like, what is a setup? What are our goals when getting a setup? I'm gonna go over the two types of setup and the three main adjustments that happen during a setup. I'm gonna help you understand how you know what you want in a setup and what to say to your local luthier and guitar tech. So to start off with a little information about me, my name's Erik. I've worked on over 7,000 guitars, been in the industry for over a decade. I've worked in Nashville, and right now I live in Daytona Beach, Florida. And I own my own shop here, Sunland Guitars, here in Daytona Beach. So let's get started with that first question. What is a setup? The basic answer to that question is that a guitar setup are adjustments made to the height of the strings from the fretboard. So we have three main goals or issues that we're trying to solve with a setup. The first one is reducing fret buzz. If we feel like we're playing through and everything's too buzzy, we're going to try to eliminate as much of that buzz as possible, if not all of it. We're going to adjust the playability. So a lot of the times, especially here in Daytona, I have a lot of older clients who want to be able to play their guitar easier. They want the height of the strings to be closer to the fretboard so they don't have to press so far down. They want it to be as easy as possible to be able to fret a note. And then the third one is adjusting your tone. So this might come more with acoustic guitars because the distance from the strings are from the sound hole can adjust the tone of the guitar. And so the three main adjustments that happen during a setup are the neck. So we're going to adjust the truss rod if possible. We want to adjust the neck because it's very possible that the neck has twisted, warped, or it's just been bent a little bit. And what I mean by that is that the neck will naturally get relief in it a lot of the times. And especially here in Florida with a lot of heat and humidity, it heats up the wood fibers and the glue and all that string tension pulling on the neck creates a natural curvature in the neck. So it'll start to dip like this, or what we call relief. So it's either the guitar either has relief in it, it's completely flat, or it's overbowed, which is going the other way, more like a rainbow. Every guitar should have a little bit of relief in it. There is such thing as where the guitar neck is completely flat and you still end up with a little buzzing just because of the way you play. We usually play a little harder, so when we play harder, as we go from the nut to the saddle, we want every fret to be just a little lower technically, or low enough to not create buzz. So when we create a little bit of a dip in the neck, that allows us to play really hard and not deal with a lot of that fret buzz coming through. And all of this depends on the way that you either tighten or loosen the truss rod. And I go over that a lot more in my other videos about the guitar tech's order of operations and making adjustments. And we get into more of the weeds and more of the details on which way to turn it and why and how to tell which one. The second main adjustment is the saddle heights. So that's where your strings are resting, either with the pickups or on the bridge with the saddles. With an electric guitar, it's a lot easier to adjust because a Fender, a lot of the times, you have each individual saddle that you can adjust. With more of an Epiphone or a Gibson, you have the tune-o-matic, so you either adjust one side or the treble side or the bass side, and everything in between is just kind of automatically leveled out. We adjust that depending on the height or the distance the string is at the 12th fret of the guitar. We want to get the neck leveled out first with the truss rod adjustments if needed, and then we'll do the saddle adjustments and get that either higher or lower depending on what we just did with the neck. So if the neck had a lot of relief in it and I go to straighten it out, then that means the strings will get closer to the fretboard and it might be even too close. So then we want to go to the saddle and raise the saddle up because to get rid of whatever fret buzz is in there, or vice versa. We may have needed to add relief into the neck and then the saddles are too high. So then we have to lower the saddles down to get it into our preferred string height at the 12th fret. With acoustic guitars, it's a lot harder to change the saddle height. You have to actually take the saddle out and sand it down if we need to lower it. If you want to raise an acoustic saddle, you have to either put a shim underneath of it, or the preferred preferred method, which is the correct method, is to get a whole new saddle, which is the correct height, cut and placed into the guitar. Here are some common heights. I go by 64ths of an inch. A lot of people go by millimeters, and I'll give both of those here. Electric guitars are 4/64ths on the treble side and 6/64ths on the bass side. Acoustic guitars, 5/64ths on the treble side and 7/64ths on the bass side. And then acoustic guitars are the same as bass guitars, 5 and 7, and classical is usually 8 and 10. And there are other ones off of that. And I'll get into where these numbers come from and why they're important later, but generally speaking, that's the height that we want to go off of and what the manufacturers will set up the guitar for when it leaves the factory. And the third major adjustment is the nut slots, because the strings are sitting in two places. It's either sitting at the nut or sitting at the saddle. And main adjustments are the saddle and the neck, but sometimes the nut slots aren't always where they need to be. Especially nowadays, I get a lot of guitars straight from the manufacturer where they can be lowered down a little more. And to adjust the nut slots are a little more difficult. You need specific sized files to be able to take each one down individually. And then there's just a specific height. I like to use a guitar pick that's a specific thickness. So if I put the guitar pick underneath the string where the first fret is, if the string can't hold it up when I turn it sideways and it just falls down, that means we need to go lower. But also we don't want to go too low where we play it open and it causes fret buzz on that first fret. And so with all of these adjustments, it's really like a seesaw. You're kind of going back and forth, adjusting the neck, adjusting the saddles, adjusting the nut slots until everything is just right where it needs to be. And a lot of this is based on feel. One of the biggest issues that I see with a lot of guitar techs is just that they don't have enough experience. And you just have to get that by doing many, many guitars over a lot of years and just understanding the difference. At least for me, in my experience, there's a turning point when it becomes instinctual. Like I just have a feeling and I kind of go off of that feeling, and a lot of it's based off of measurements. There's some guitar techs who only go off of feeling. No measurements, they don't use any rulers. But then there's the other side where it's only measurements and that's it. There's no real feel about it. Whereas I think a lot of guitar techs and luthiers with a lot of the experience will agree with me that it's a combination of both. You kind of get a little bit of both. All right, so now I want to go through the two types of setups. And to me, this is just something that I've kind of come up with and I've kind of figured out on my own, is that there's a production setup and a personal setup. So a production setup is a standard manufacturer spec height, which is what I just went over. Those heights, the 4 and 6/64s, 5 and 7, 8 and 10, whatever it may be. That's what most of the manufacturers go off of, and that's how they'll manufacture the guitar. That's how they'll set it up from the factory. And even from Sweetwater, they have like a production level setup. When you buy a guitar from Sweetwater and it's gone through their 52-point inspection and all their setup and everything, from what I've seen, because I have clients bring it directly to me after getting it from Sweetwater, is that I'll see it at about those manufacturer spec heights, which is fine. That's a general place to put it in. Some people like it higher, some people like it lower. It's all based on personal preference, which is why I also called the second type of setup a personal setup, because some people like it lower. Even if the guitar is a little buzzy, they're fine with it because it's more of a feel for them. With electric guitars, some clients put them through so many different pedals, and after going through the amp and through the mix and all these other effects, you don't hear any of that buzz. It may deplete the tone just a tiny bit, but in the grand scheme of things, it's very, very minute when it's coming through the actual speaker, through the song, whatever it may be. And like I said, some people like it a little higher. I have many professional clients who like their string height a little higher than the manufacturer height. And that's just a personal preference to them. That's where they like it to be on an electric guitar. Kind of want to touch on this a little bit, but there's kind of a myth about the low action stuff. Getting your action low and everything. It needs to be really low. And it's like, it doesn't really need it to be that low. And a lot of the times I have clients who come in and say, oh, I need the action as low as possible. And I'll measure it and I'll play through it and it's buzzy all over the place and it's already below the manufacturer spec height, and I'm kind of like, I don't really know where else to take this. To get it lower than this means even more buzz, and you're already below. Sometimes as a luthier or a guitar tech, I have to kind of work through this process with every client just to help them understand what they're really talking about, or what are they really asking for from me. If they don't actually know what the string height is at the 12th fret of any of their guitars, then they're just going off of a feel. And I know that I can just set it up the way that it was and leave it as is, or I can raise raise it up and get rid of a little bit of the buzz. But this is also why I like doing private appointments with my customers right in front of me, so that I can go over this stuff in the appointment. I can do the setup, hand it over to them, ask them how it feels, if that's correct or not, and go from there. At the end of the day, this setup is really up to you, which is probably the next question you're asking. Well, how do I know what I like? And my answer to that is to try different things. Raise the action, see what it feels like, if you like that or not. If you want the action lower, how low can you go before you get tired of whatever buzz, or before all of the tone is completely killed by it comes out of the amp, or when you're playing your acoustic guitar, if it's just too buzzy and you don't like the sound of it. But then also measure. Every guitarist should have a 6-inch rule or some kind of string height gauge that they can go off of. And even if it's just like a one that you personally make, that you find out that you like the action exactly like this guitar that you have at home, take a little piece of wood or a piece of metal and take a notch and put it on there, or a piece of paper, a piece of cardboard, cardstock, whatever it is, just so that you know that you can put it on any other guitar and know that, okay, this guitar is set up a little higher than the one I like at home. This one's a little lower. That way you know for sure from measuring what you're probably going to be dealing with. When you sight the neck, which I go over in my Guitar Tech order of operations video of adjustments and how to sight the neck and what to look for with that. If you sight the neck and you see at the guitar shop that it's really bowed and the action's low, you're probably going to end up with a lot of buzz up past the 12th fret. And that's going to be why. Or if the action's really low and you sight the neck and it's at an overbowed, then you're going to be dealing with a lot of buzzing up towards the first 5 frets. And that's just really what you kind of have to work through and know. But it's very, very important, I think, for every guitarist to have some kind of a gauge to know exactly where you like your setups. Another thing that I tell everybody is that you need to play every guitar. Seriously, take time every weekend to go to your local guitar shop, or maybe once a month go to a guitar store and just sit down and play a handful of them. If you can get to the point where you've played every guitar in that store and you've taken notes like, I like this neck profile, I like this wood, I like this body size or this style, I like the weight of this guitar, and you're taking notes and you're figuring this out, you're going to be leaps and bounds above every other guitarist, and you're going to get to that point where you're going to know exactly what you want from a guitar and exactly what you want from a setup, because you've gone in, you've experimented, you've tried everything out, and you don't have to buy everything. You can just go in and try stuff out. If the guitar shop doesn't let you do that, there's shitty guitar shop, because guitars are meant to be played, and you can't know what you like unless you try it out first, which is one of the biggest issues that I have about buying guitars online, is because just because you like that exact model and of the same year and everything at that guitar shop, but you don't like the color of it, and then you go online to buy the one that's in the right color, that guitar could be total trash, but you won't know until you get it and you play it. And that's just part of learning and part of experiencing every guitar and trying everything out. But you really need to be putting in the time and the energy at guitar shops, guitar stores, and trying things out and taking notes, really looking into what you like and what you don't like. Okay, so now we know what we like. Well, if we don't have the time and you don't want to do it at home, then that means you have to go to your local professional, your local Luthier or Guitar Tech. Tell them exactly the specs that you want. If you've measured it out by the millimeter or by the 64th or 32nd of an inch, whatever it is, tell them exactly what you want. You can tell them, don't adjust the neck, please. Don't adjust the nut slots. Don't adjust the saddles. And you can kind of tell them exactly what you want, and just so that they clean it up and change the strings and do all that stuff. If you still don't know what you want, then you can totally just go in there and tell them, hey, I think I'm getting a lot of buzzing down here. I'm getting a lot of buzzing up here, whichever it may be. I just feel like the strings might be a little high. What are they measuring? Or I feel like they're a little low and just buzzy all over. I wouldn't mind if you raised the action up just a little bit, but I don't want to be over the manufacturer's spec height. And if they don't know what that is, that's probably an issue, but it might not if they have a really good reputation and they've been doing it for a very, very long time. Then they probably have the feel, and they're going to set up that guitar the way that it feels right. Every guitar shop should be willing to work with you, because at the end of the day, and what I tell my clients is that I can set up your guitar the way I think it should be, but I'm your guitar tech. I'm your luthier. I need to set this guitar up for you to be an extension of your body so that you create the music that you should out of it, that you want to out of it, that comes from you. And I'm doing a big disservice if I'm not even asking you those questions. If I just set up the guitar guitar, send it back to you, and tell you to, you know, screw off if you have any issues with it. I don't do that. When I set up a guitar for a client, I tell them you got a week or two to bring it back to me if you don't like something, because I want to make sure that this guitar is the most comfortable for you. It's giving you the best tone, the best playability, whatever it is that you wanted. And especially from new clients, like, I don't know what you want until we kind of work through a couple setups and we start learning about each other, and I learn about the way that you play, what types of music you play, how fast you play, how hard you press, how hard you pick each string. There's a lot that goes into this. It's a relationship that we're building, and I can't tell you what the string height should be on your guitar. You have to tell me that. Most of the time I do set it up just below manufactured height, and most people are happy. Sometimes I have people come bring it back. They want it a little higher, they want it a little lower. Sometimes they want it even across the fretboard. You know, to each their own. It is what it is. I have some clients who like to put electric 8-gauge strings on their acoustic guitar. It's not for me, but it is what it is, because, you know, different strokes for different folks. So in conclusion, you just need to mess around with it, play around with it, get a ruler or some type of gauge so that you can understand it, and go to your local guitar shop, build a relationship with your local luthier or guitar tech, and start learning things, start asking them these questions, go back and forth to make sure that you're getting what you need out of your guitar. If you have any questions or have any issues, let me know down in the comments. Please like, subscribe. I'm going to be putting out more of this stuff as just a guitar tech who's started his own business. I'm just trying to do things the right way for the clients, and it seems like everything's working out pretty good here in Daytona Beach, so I want to share that knowledge and share this stuff with you guys out there. Thanks.